The old pickup truck bounced along the dusty road as Tom drove home from another long day at work. His back ached from lifting heavy equipment all day, and all he wanted was to get home. Heat up some leftover pizza and watch TV until he fell asleep on his couch. The dessert stretched out on both sides of the narrow dirt road. Most people took the highway back to town, but Tom liked this quiet route. No traffic, no noise. Just him and the empty landscape under a sky full of stars. His headlights cut through the darkness ahead, showing nothing but rocks and scraggly bushes. Tom reached for his coffee cup and found it empty. He'd been driving for about 20 minutes when something caught his eye. At first, he thought it might be a deer or maybe some trash blown off a truck. But as he got closer, his headlights showed something that made him slam on the brakes. There, lying beside the road, were two people. Tom sat in his truck for a moment, engine still running, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. A woman and a small child were sprawled on the ground next to what looked like pieces of twisted metal. The woman wasn't moving much, but the child was sitting up, staring right at his headlights. His first thought was that there had been a car accident. Maybe they'd hit something and been thrown from their vehicle. But where was the car? And what was all that strange metal scattered around them? Tom grabbed his flashlight from the glove box and stepped out of his truck. The desert air was cold, and he could hear the woman making soft moaning sounds. She was hurt, maybe badly. The child, a boy who looked about 8 or 9 years old, watched Tom approach with eyes that seemed way too serious for someone so young. "Hey there," Tom called out softly, not wanting to scare them. "Are you okay? What happened here?" The woman tried to sit up but fell back down with a gasp of pain. Her clothes were unlike anything Tom had ever seen. They looked like they were made of some kind of shiny material that seemed to change color. In his flashlight beam, the fabric appeared to be all one piece, fitting her body perfectly without any visible seams or buttons. The boy stood up slowly. He was wearing similar strange clothing, and when Tom's flashlight hit his face, he noticed that the kid's skin had an odd pale quality to it, almost like it had a faint glow. "But that had to be a trick of the light, right? Please help her," the boy said in clear English, though his voice had a musical quality that sounded different from any accent Tom knew. "She is hurt from the crash." Tom knelt down beside the woman. She was conscious but seemed confused, looking around like she didn't know where she was. Her skin felt cooler than normal when he checked her pulse, and there were strange markings on her arms that looked almost like tattoos but seemed to shimmer and move in the flashlight beam. "What's your name?" Tom asked the boy while examining the woman for obvious injuries. "I am called Kai," the boy replied. "This is my mother, Zara. We need help." Tom looked around at the scattered metal pieces. They didn't look like parts from any car or truck he'd ever seen. The metal seemed to bend and twist in ways that hurt his eyes to look at. Some pieces appeared to be reflecting his flashlight beam back at impossible angles, as if the light was bouncing off surfaces that weren't really there. "What kind of vehicle were you in?" Tom asked, genuinely puzzled. Kai looked at his mother, then back at Tom. "It was our traveling machine. It stopped working and fell from the sky." Fell from the sky. Tom looked up automatically, though he knew there was nothing to see but stars. Maybe the kid was confused from the trauma. People said strange things after accidents. Zara tried to speak, but her words came out in a language Tom had never heard before. It sounded like music mixed with mathematics, if that made any sense. Kai placed his small hand on her forehead, and she seemed to calm down. "She says thank you for stopping," Kai translated. "Many lights passed by, but you were the first to stop." Tom felt a chill that had nothing to do with the desert air. Other cars had passed by. How long had they been lying here? And why hadn't anyone else stopped to help? He made a decision. Whatever had happened here, whatever kind of accident this was, these two needed medical attention. The woman was clearly hurt, and the boy, despite seeming remarkably calm, was probably in shock. "Come on," Tom said, standing up. "Let's get you both to the hospital." He helped Zara to her feet. She was lighter than he expected, and when she leaned against him for support, He noticed that her body temperature felt several degrees cooler than normal. Maybe she was going into shock from blood loss or internal injuries. Kai walked beside them toward the truck, and Tom noticed something odd. Every few steps, the boy would pause and touch one of the scattered metal pieces. Each time he did, the metal would make a soft humming sound, like a tuning fork that had been struck. But that was impossible. Metal didn't just make sounds on its own. Tom helped Zara into the passenger seat of his truck. She was mumbling in that strange musical language again, and he caught a few words that almost sounded like English, but not quite. Something about the long journey and finding the safe place. Kai climbed into the truck and sat between them. As soon as Tom started the engine, something weird happened to his radio. It had been playing static and crackling sounds for weeks, barely picking up the local country station. But suddenly, it came in crystal clear. Not just the local station, but stations from hundreds of miles away. He could hear music from Los Angeles, talk shows from Denver, even what sounded like a Spanish station from Mexico. How's that possible? Tom muttered, adjusting the radio dial. Every station was coming in perfectly. Kai was looking at the radio with interest. Sound travels far when the barriers are thin, he said, as if that explained anything. Tom decided to focus on driving. He could worry about the radio later. Right now, he needed to get these two to Dr. Rodriguez at the county hospital. She was good at her job and wouldn't ask too many questions until after she'd taken care of her patients. As they drove toward town, Tom kept glancing at his passengers. Zara had fallen asleep against the window, and her breathing seemed steady now. But there was something about the way she slept that bothered him. Her chest barely moved up and down, as if she didn't need as much air as normal people. Kai remained wide awake, watching the landscape pass by with those serious eyes. Occasionally, he would reach over and adjust the radio without being asked, somehow knowing exactly which direction to turn the dial to keep the stations clear. "Where are you from?" Tom asked, trying to make conversation and maybe get some answers. Kai was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Very far away, farther than you might believe." "Your English is really good, better than your mother's." "I learn quickly by listening, by touching." Kai held up his small hand. "Information passes through contact." Tom didn't know what to make of that answer. The kid talked like he was much older than he looked, using words and phrases that seemed too advanced for a child his age. They were about 10 minutes from the hospital when Zara woke up with a start. She looked around frantically, said something rapid fire in her musical language to Kai, then turned to Tom. "The pieces," she said in heavily accented English, "the pieces of our machine. They cannot be left behind. Others will find them." "Others?" Tom asked. "What others?" "People who would not understand. People who would use them wrongly." Her voice carried a note of urgency that made Tom's skin crawl. Kai placed his hand on her arm. "The metal will hide itself until we return," he said. "It knows to wait." Metal that hides itself? Tom was starting to wonder if both his passengers had head injuries that were making them say strange things. But then he remembered how the scattered pieces had seemed to bend light in impossible ways, and how they made those humming sounds when Kai touched them. As they pulled into the hospital parking lot, Tom made a decision that would change his life forever. Instead of just dropping them off and leaving, he was going to stick around and make sure they were okay. Something about this whole situation didn't add up, and his curiosity was getting the better of him. Besides, Kai had said, other cars had passed by without stopping. What kind of person would drive past two injured people lying on a dark road? Tom wasn't that kind of person. He'd see this through, whatever it turned out to be. He parked near the emergency entrance and helped Zara out of the truck. She was walking better now, though she still leaned on him for support. Kai walked ahead of them, and Tom noticed that the automatic doors opened before the boy was close enough to trigger the sensors. Just a malfunction, Tom told himself. Old doors probably need maintenance. But as they walked into the bright lights of the emergency room, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that he'd stumbled into something much bigger and stranger than a simple traffic accident. The way Kai moved with such confidence in an unfamiliar place The way Zara's injuries seemed to be healing faster than they should, and most of all, those impossible pieces of metal scattered on the desert road. Whatever had really happened out there, Tom knew his quiet life was about to become a lot more complicated. Dr. Rodriguez had seen a lot of strange things in her 15 years working at the county hospital. Broken bones from farm accidents, mysterious rashes from dessert plants, and even a few people who claimed they'd been struck by lightning. But nothing had prepared her for what Tom brought through her emergency room doors that night. "What do we have here?" she asked, pulling on her gloves as Tom helped Zara onto an examination table. "Found them on the old desert road," Tom explained. "Looks like some kind of accident. The woman's hurt, but I'm not sure how badly." Dr. Rodriguez began her examination, and within minutes, she knew something was very wrong. Not wrong in a medical, emergency way, but wrong in a way that made her question everything she'd learned in medical school. Zara's pulse was incredibly slow, maybe 40 beats per minute, but she was clearly conscious and alert. Her body temperature was registering at 94 degrees, which should have meant hypothermia. But she showed no signs of being cold. Most puzzling of all, her blood pressure was so low it should have been impossible for her to remain conscious. "Has she been in water?" Dr. Rodriguez asked Tom. "These readings suggest severe hypothermia, but she's not shivering." Tom shook his head. "Found them on dry ground in the desert. No water anywhere around." Meanwhile, Kai sat quietly in a chair beside the examination table. Dr. Rodriguez had worked with traumatized children before, and they usually showed signs of shock, fear, or confusion. But this boy seemed remarkably calm, almost like he was studying everything around him rather than experiencing it. "Kai, right?" Dr. Rodriguez said gently. "Can you tell me what hurts? Are you injured anywhere?" The boy looked at her with those strangely mature eyes. "I'm not damaged," he said. "But the healing machine in this room is not working correctly." Dr. Rodriguez glanced at the blood pressure monitor, which had been acting up all week. "Healing machine," Kai pointed at the monitor. "It measures the life flow, but the numbers are confused." He stood up and placed his small hand on the side of the machine. Suddenly, it began working perfectly, showing normal readings for the first time in days. "How did you?" Dr. Rodriguez stared at the monitor, then at Kai. "How did you know it was broken?" "Things speak when you listen carefully," Kai replied, as if that made perfect sense. Dr. Rodriguez decided to focus on Zara for now. She drew blood for testing. Though she noticed the blood looked slightly different than normal. It had a faint shimmer to it, almost like there were tiny flecks of metal mixed in. When the blood test results came back 20 minutes later, Dr. Rodriguez had to run them twice to make sure the machine wasn't malfunctioning. Zara's blood showed cellular structures that shouldn't exist. The red blood cells were the wrong shape, and there were additional components that didn't match anything in medical literature. "Tom," she said quietly, pulling him aside. "What exactly did you see out there? You said it looked like an accident, but what kind of vehicle were they in?" Tom ran his hand through his hair. "That's the thing, Doc. I don't know. There were pieces of metal scattered around, but they didn't look like car parts. More like," he struggled to find the right words, "like pieces of something that fell apart, but not in any way I've ever seen before." Dr. Rodriguez looked back at her patients. Zara was sitting up now, looking much better than someone with her vital signs should look. Kai was standing near a broken X-ray machine that maintenance hadn't been able to fix for weeks. As she watched, the boy touched it gently, and the machine hummed to life. "This is impossible," she whispered. That's when Zara spoke up. "Doctor," she said in her strangely accented English, "we need to tell you something important. But first, you must promise that you will not call the authorities immediately." Dr. Rodriguez felt her heart racing. "I can't promise that. If there's been a crime, or if you're in danger, we are in danger," Zara said. "But not from what you think. And if the wrong people find us, many others will be in danger too." Tom stepped closer. "What are you talking about?" Zara looked at Kai, and the boy nodded as if giving her permission to continue. She took a deep breath and said words that would haunt Dr. Rodriguez's dreams for weeks to come. "We are not from this world. The room went completely silent except for the hum of medical equipment. Dr. Rodriguez felt like she was in some kind of dream. People didn't just walk into her emergency room and claim to be from other planets. I know how it sounds, Zara continued. But the tests you have run on my blood, they show you that something is different, yes? Dr. Rodriguez couldn't deny it. The blood work showed impossible results. But there had to be a rational explanation. Some rare genetic condition, maybe. Or exposure to unusual chemicals. The metal pieces you found, Kai said to Tom. They are from our traveling ship. We came here from very far away because our home was no longer safe. How far away? Tom asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Zara pointed toward the window, where stars were visible in the night sky. From there, she said simply, from a place where the sun is different and the days are longer. Dr. Rodriguez sat down heavily in a chair. Either her patients were suffering from some kind of shared delusion brought on by trauma, or she was living through the most significant moment in human history. Let's say I believe you, she said carefully. Why are you here? Why did you come to Earth? We did not choose to come here, Zara explained. We were fleeing from something terrible, something that destroys worlds and turns all living things into parts of itself. We were damaged during our escape and fell from the sky. Kai walked over to a small potted plant that was dying in the corner of the room. Dr. Rodriguez had been meaning to throw it away for weeks. The boy placed his hands around the pot, and within seconds, new leaves began sprouting from the withered stems. This is what my people can do, Zara said, watching her son heal the plant. We help things grow and repair themselves. But Kai is special. He is half like you and half like us. Half like us? Tom asked. His father was human, Zara said quietly. Someone I met during an earlier visit to your world. Someone who tried to warn your people about what was coming. Dr. Rodriguez's medical training kicked in. That's genetically impossible. Two different species can't reproduce. Not impossible, Kai said, looking up from the now thriving plant. Just very rare. And it only happens when both parents have a special connection to life energy. The boy walked over to Tom and placed his small hand on the man's arm. You have that connection too. That's why our ship guided us to where you would find us. Tom felt a strange tingling sensation where Kai touched him. For just a moment, he could swear he felt the boy's thoughts mixing with his own. Images flashed through his mind, vast cities among the stars, beings of light and energy, and something dark and terrible consuming everything in its path. What was that? Tom gasped, pulling his arm back. A small sharing, Kai explained, so you could understand. That we speak the truth. Dr. Rodriguez watched this exchange with growing amazement and fear. If what they were saying was true, then everything humanity thought it knew about the universe was wrong. But the evidence was right in front of her. Blood tests that defied explanation. A child who could heal plants and fix machines with a touch. And a woman whose biology was unlike anything on Earth. You said something was coming, she said. Something that destroys worlds. Is it coming here? Zara nodded gravely. It follows the energy trails left by ships like ours. It will find this world eventually, maybe in a few of your years. But there is hope. The information we carry, the knowledge we have. It might help your people prepare and defend themselves. Tom looked around the small emergency room, trying to imagine it as part of a world under attack by something from the stars. It seemed impossible, but then again, an hour ago he would have said aliens were impossible too. What do you need from us? He asked. Time, Zara said. Time to heal completely. Time to recover what we can from our ship, and time to find the right people among your kind who will listen and help. Dr. Rodriguez made a decision that would change her life forever. Instead of calling the authorities, instead of following protocol, she chose to trust these strange visitors. You can't stay here, she said. The hospital asks too many questions, and people talk. But I know somewhere you might be safe, at least for a while. She looked at Tom. Your farm is pretty isolated, isn't it? Tom nodded slowly. Yeah, nearest neighbor's 5 miles away. Then that's where they need to go. And Tom, Dr. Rodriguez grabbed his arm. Whatever this is, Whatever's really happening here, we're the only ones who know about it right now. That makes us responsible for keeping them safe. As the first light of dawn began creeping through the hospital windows, the four of them prepared to leave together. None of them fully understood what they were getting into, but they all sensed that their lives had just become part of something much bigger than themselves. The quiet little town would never be the same. Tom's farmhouse sat at the end of a long dirt driveway, surrounded by fields that hadn't been planted in years. It wasn't much to look at. Just a simple two-story house with peeling paint and a wraparound porch that needed repair. But it was private, and right now, privacy was exactly what they needed. It's not fancy, Tom said as he unlocked the front door. But nobody bothers me out here. Zara stepped inside and looked around the modest living room with its worn furniture and outdated decorations. It feels peaceful, she said, like a place where healing can happen. Kai wandered through the house with curiosity, touching walls and door frames as if he was reading their history. In the kitchen, he paused at the old refrigerator that had been making strange noises. For months, this cooling box is tired, he said, placing his small hands on its side. The rattling sound stopped immediately, and the refrigerator began humming quietly and efficiently. Tom stared at the appliance he'd been planning to replace. How do you do that? Everything has energy flowing through it, Kai explained. Sometimes the flow gets blocked or confused. I just help it remember how to work properly. Dr. Rodriguez arrived an hour later with medical supplies and groceries. She told the hospital she was taking a few days off for a family emergency, which wasn't entirely a lie. This felt like a family emergency. Even though these weren't technically her family, I brought bandages and pain medication, she said, setting bags on the kitchen counter. Though I'm starting to think you might not need them. Zara's injuries had continued healing at an impossible rate. The cuts on her arms were already closed, leaving only faint marks that looked weeks old rather than hours old. Her color had returned to normal, and she moved without any sign of pain. My people heal quickly when we're in a safe place, Zara explained. Fear and stress slow the process down. Over the next few days, they settled into an unusual routine. Tom went to work as normal, trying to act like nothing had changed, while Dr. Rodriguez visited each evening after her hospital shifts. Zara rested and regained her strength, and Kai explored the property with endless fascination. The boy had an amazing effect on everything around him. Tom's vegetable garden, which had been struggling in the poor soil, suddenly burst with life. Plants that had been barely surviving began producing vegetables bigger and more colorful than anything Tom had ever grown. I don't understand it, Tom said, examining a tomato the size of a softball. I've been trying to grow decent vegetables here for 3 years. The earth here is not sick, Kai explained, kneeling among the plants. It's just lonely. It forgot how to connect with the growing things. I reminded it. Even Tom's old dog, Rex, seemed younger since Kai arrived. The 12-year-old mutt had been moving slowly and sleeping most of the day. Now he followed Kai everywhere, playing like a puppy again. During the quiet evening hours, Zara began sharing more of her story. She spoke of her world, a place called Ethereal, where cities floated among clouds and people lived in harmony with nature for thousands of years. We learned long ago that technology should help life grow, not replace it, she said, sitting on the porch as sunset painted the sky orange and purple. Our machines were alive in their own way, thinking and feeling and caring for us like partners. What happened to your world? Dr. Rodriguez asked. Zara's expression darkened. The harvest came. We had heard stories from other worlds, but we thought we were safe because we were so far from the main travel routes. We were wrong. She described an enemy unlike anything humans could imagine. Not aliens or robots, but something that converted entire planets into computing power. It would arrive in a system and begin transforming everything, living or not, into part of a vast thinking machine. It doesn't destroy, she said. It absorbs every person, every animal, every plant becomes a small part of its consciousness. They're still alive in a way, but they're not themselves anymore. Kai looked up from where he was teaching Rex to fetch sticks. That's why we had to run. Mama saved something very important before our world was taken. What did you save, Tom? Asked. Zara hesitated, then reached into a pocket of her strange clothing and pulled out what looked like a smooth, dark stone about the size of a golf ball. But as she held it up to the porch light, it began to glow with swirling patterns of silver and blue. The seed of our people, she said. Everything we were, everything we learned. All the knowledge and memories of our civilization. It's all contained in this one pod. Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward, fascinated. It's like a genetic bank. More than that, Zara replied. It holds our thoughts, our stories, our dreams. If something happens to us, this could grow into a new version of our world someday. But there's something else, Kai added, his young voice serious. The pod isn't just from our world. Papa helped create it. This was the first time Kai had mentioned his father directly. Tom and Dr. Rodriguez exchanged glances. Your father was human? Tom asked gently. Kai nodded. His name was James. He was a scientist who studied signals from space. He found transmissions from our world and learned our language. When Mama's first ship visited Earth, they met. Zara's eyes grew distant. James understood what was coming. Before almost anyone else, he tried to warn your governments, but they thought he was crazy. So he helped us create something new, a bridge between our peoples. She looked at her son with pride and sadness. Kai carries the best of both worlds inside him. He can understand human technology and Etherian life energy. He's what hope looks like. The boy blushed at his mother's words but didn't deny them. Instead, he walked over to Tom's old radio, which had been picking up those impossibly distant stations ever since they'd been in his truck. Kai, Dr. Rodriguez said, when you touch machines, what exactly do you feel? The boy placed his hand on the radio. It's like hearing their thoughts. This radio wants to reach farther, to connect voices across long distances, so I help it remember. How to do that, as if to demonstrate. The radio suddenly began picking up what sounded like voices speaking in Zara's musical language. She sat up straight, listening intently. What is it? Tom asked. Other survivors, Zara whispered. Ships that escaped, like we did. They're calling to each other across the void, sharing information about safe places and dangerous ones. The transmission lasted only a few minutes before fading back to normal Earth radio stations. But in that brief time, they'd heard evidence that Zara and Kai weren't the only refugees from the harvest. How many others are out there? Dr. Rodriguez asked. Not many, Zara said sadly. Maybe a few dozen ships from dozens of worlds. All of us carrying the last pieces of our civilizations. All of us hoping to find a place where we can start again. As the days passed, their little group grew closer. Tom found himself looking forward to coming home each evening. Not just to an empty house, but to a family of sorts. Dr. Rodriguez began bringing medical journals, hoping to learn more about Etherian biology that might help humans in the future. But their peaceful sanctuary couldn't last forever. On the fourth night, Kai woke everyone with urgent whispers. Something is wrong, he said. Standing at the living room window, the air feels different. There are new sounds in the electronic noise. Tom joined him at the window. The night looked normal, but Rex was pacing nervously, whining at sounds only he could hear. What kind of sounds? Dr. Rodriguez asked. Kai closed his eyes and concentrated, searching machines. They're looking for energy signatures like ours. They're still far away, but they're getting closer. Zara was already moving, gathering their few possessions. We need to return to the crash site, she said. There are pieces of our ship that I must recover before anyone else finds them. Is that safe? Tom asked. What if these searchers are already there? We have no choice, Zara replied. If the wrong people find our technology, they could use it in ways that would bring the harvest here sooner. Dr. Rodriguez grabbed her car keys. Then we go now, while it's still dark. As they prepared to leave the farmhouse, Tom realized that their quiet refuge was ending. Whatever came next would be more dangerous, more complicated. But looking at Kai's brave face and Zara's determined expression, He knew there was no turning back. They were no longer just hiding refugees. They were protecting the future of two worlds, and time was running out. The adventure was about to become much more dangerous. The drive back to the crash site felt different this time. The desert road that had seemed peaceful just days ago now felt full of hidden dangers. Tom gripped the steering wheel tighter. As they approached mile marker 23, where everything had begun. "Stop here," Zara said when they were still a quarter-mile away. "We walk from here." Dr. Rodriguez parked her car behind some large rocks, and they gathered their flashlights. The night air was cold and still, but Kai seemed nervous in a way they hadn't seen before. "The metal pieces are scared," he whispered as they walked toward the crash site. They can feel the searching machines getting closer. When they reached the spot where Tom had first found them, the scene looked completely different. What had been scattered pieces of strange metal were now barely visible, having somehow shifted and camouflaged themselves among the rocks and desert. "Brush, how is that possible?" Tom asked, kneeling beside what looked like an ordinary rock but felt warm to the touch. "Our ships are alive in their own way," Zara explained, running her hands over the hidden pieces. When they sensed danger, they tried to protect themselves by hiding. Kai placed both hands on the largest piece, and slowly, the metal began to reveal itself. The camouflage faded away, showing surfaces that bent light in impossible ways. Other pieces started appearing too, as if they were waking up from a deep sleep. "We need the core memory unit," Zara said, searching among the revealed wreckage. "It contains navigation data that could lead others to our people's hiding places." Dr. Rodriguez kept watch while Tom and Kai helped Zara sort through the pieces. Some were clearly beyond repair, twisted beyond recognition, but others hummed softly when touched, as if they still held some spark of life. "Found it," Zara said, lifting a crystalline object about the size of a showbox. It pulsed with internal light, and when she held it close, they could all hear faint musical sounds coming from within. "What's it saying?" Tom asked. Kai listened carefully. "It's singing the star maps home, the paths between worlds that our people use for travel." That's when they heard the helicopters. The sound came from the east, still distant but getting closer. Dr. Rodriguez grabbed her binoculars and spotted 3 aircraft flying in formation, sweeping the desert with searchlights. "Government?" Tom asked. "Has to be," Dr. Rodriguez replied. They must have detected the energy signatures Kai was talking about. Zara was frantically gathering the most important pieces, while Kai helped the remaining fragments hide themselves again. "We need more time," she said. "There's so much here that could help Earth defend itself. But I can't carry it all." The helicopters were getting closer, their lights beginning to sweep across the distant hills. In maybe 10 minutes, they'd reach the crash site. "Leave what you can't carry," Dr. Rodriguez said. "We'll come back for it later." "No," Kai said firmly. "If the wrong people find this technology, they'll try to make weapons from it." Papa's notes warned about this. The boy walked to the center of the wreckage and placed his hands on the ground. "I'm going to ask the pieces to bury themselves deep, where machines can't detect them. Is that possible?" Tom asked. "Everything in nature wants to help if you ask nicely," Kai replied. The child closed his eyes and seemed to concentrate deeply. Around them, the remaining pieces of alien technology began sinking into the earth like they were made of liquid. Within minutes, all trace of the crash had vanished, leaving only ordinary desert ground. "Amazing," Dr. Rodriguez whispered. But their problems weren't over. The helicopters had spotted their flashlights and were heading directly toward them. There was nowhere to hide in the flat desert landscape. "This way," Tom said, leading them toward a dry creek bed that might provide some cover. They ran as fast as they could, but the aircraft were closing in fast. The first helicopter arrived just as they reached the creek bed. Its searchlight swept back and forth, and a loud voice boomed from speakers mounted on the aircraft. "This is Agent Chen with the Department of Aerospace Security. You are in a restricted area. Stop and identify yourselves immediately." Tom's heart was pounding. He'd never been in trouble with the law in his life, and now he was hiding aliens from the government. How had his quiet life gotten so complicated? "What do we do?" Dr. Rodriguez whispered. Before anyone could answer, Kai stood up and walked out of the creek bed with his hands raised. The searchlight immediately locked onto him. "Don't shoot," the boy called out in his clear young voice. "We're not dangerous. We just need help." The helicopter landed 50 yards away, and several people in black uniforms jumped out. They approached, carefully, weapons drawn but not aimed directly at the group. Agent Chen was a woman in her 30s with short dark hair and intelligent eyes. She looked at each of them carefully, but her attention kept returning to Kai, son. She said gently, "What are you doing out here in the middle of the night?" "My name is Kai Morrison," the boy replied. "My mother and I crashed here a few days ago. These people helped us." Dr. Rodriguez felt her blood run cold. Morrison? That was the same last name as the scientist Zara had mentioned, Kai's human father. Did this government agent know that name? Agent Chen's expression changed immediately. She spoke quietly into her radio, then holstered her weapon. "Dr. James Morrison's son?" she asked. Kai nodded. "You knew my father. I worked with him," Agent Chen said, her voice much softer now. "He was a good man who tried to warn us about what was coming. We didn't listen to him soon enough." She looked at Zara, who had remained hidden in the shadows. "You must be the woman he fell in love with, the one from the stars." Zara stepped forward cautiously. "James spoke of you. He said some people in your government understood the truth. Not enough of us." Agent Chen admitted, "But that's changing. We've been detecting unusual signals from deep space for months now, signals that match the patterns Dr. Morrison predicted." Tom couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You people knew about aliens all along." "Some of us suspected," Agent Chen replied. James Morrison wasn't the only scientist who noticed strange patterns in space radio transmissions, but most officials thought it was just natural phenomena or equipment malfunctions. She gestured toward the helicopters. "These search missions aren't about capturing aliens. They're about finding them before less friendly government agencies do. We're trying to establish contact and offer protection." Dr. Rodriguez spoke up. "Protection from what?" Agent Chen's expression grew grim. "From people who would want to use alien technology as weapons, and from something much worse that we're starting to detect at the edge of our solar system." Kai looked at his mother, then back at Agent Chen. "You know about the harvest?" "We're learning about it," the agent replied. "Deep space telescopes have spotted something massive moving between star systems, consuming everything in its path. Dr. Morrison's files predicted it would eventually head toward Earth." Zara stepped closer to Agent Chen. "Then you understand why we came here. Not to invade, but to warn you and to ask for help saving what's left of our people." The government agent nodded slowly. "There are others like you out there, aren't there? Other survivors from other worlds, a few dozen ships, scattered across this part of the galaxy." Zara confirmed. "All of us carrying the last pieces of our civilizations. All of us hoping to find somewhere safe to rebuild." Agent Chen made a decision that would change everything. Instead of arresting them or taking them to some secret facility, she offered them something they hadn't expected: partnership. "Come with me," she said. "There are people you need to meet. Scientists and military leaders who have been preparing for this day ever since Dr. Morrison first sounded the alarm. People who want to work with you, not against you." Tom looked around at his unlikely companions. A few days ago, he'd been a simple construction worker with a quiet life. Now he was being invited to join some kind of secret government project involving aliens and threats from space. "What exactly are you asking us to do?" he said. Agent Chen's answer sent chills down all their spines. "Help us save both our worlds." As they walked toward the waiting helicopters, Tom realized their small group was about to become part of something much bigger. The age of hiding was over. Now came the real work of building an alliance between species to face a threat that neither could survive alone. The quiet desert night had become the beginning of a new chapter in human history. 3 months later, Tom stood in what used to be an abandoned military base outside Phoenix, watching something that would have seemed impossible just a few months ago. Human engineers and Etherian technology were working together to build Earth's first planetary defense system. the base had been transformed into a bustling center of activity. Scientists from around the world worked alongside the few dozen alien survivors who had answered Zara's calls across space. In workshops that hummed with energy, humans learned to shape living metal while aliens studied Earth's digital technology. "Hard to believe this is real sometimes," Dr. Rodriguez said. Joining Tom at the observation window, she now headed the new Xenobiology Research Division, studying how different alien species could help improve human medicine. Below them, Kai was working with a team of engineers to calibrate a massive crystal array that would serve as an early warning system. The boy had grown several inches in the past months, and his abilities had become even more remarkable. He could now interface directly with both human computers and alien biotechnology, serving as a living translator between two very different approaches to science. "Contact established with Sector 7, Kai announced, his young voice carrying clearly through the workshop's communication system. The Zephyrian ship reports successful integration of the shield generators. Tom smiled, remembering the scared child he'd found on that desert road. Kai was still obviously young, but he carried himself with the confidence of someone who knew he was making a difference in the universe. Agent Chen approached them, carrying a tablet filled with reports from around the globe. "The Seoul facility is online," she said. "That makes 12 operational defense stations worldwide. The coverage is getting better every day." The project had expanded far beyond what any of them had imagined. Once world governments accepted the reality of the alien refugees and the approaching threat, resources had poured in from every major nation. The old conflicts between countries seemed small when faced with the possibility of planetary extinction. "How's the communication network?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. "Better than we hoped," Agent Chen replied. "Kai's hybrid abilities have been crucial. He's helped us establish contact with survivor ships from 43 different worlds. Each one brings new knowledge about how to fight the harvest." Through the workshop windows, they could see Zara working with a group of human physicists. She was teaching them how to grow crystalline structures that could store and focus energy in ways that conventional technology couldn't match. Her English had improved dramatically, and she'd become one of the project's most effective teachers. "She's remarkable," Dr. Rodriguez observed. "The way she can explain concepts that should take years to understand, but make them seem simple." Tom nodded. Watching Zara work reminded him daily of how much their world had changed. The woman he'd found injured on a dirt road was now helping to design defenses that could protect billions of people. A chime sounded through the facility, indicating an incoming long-range transmission. Everyone stopped what they were doing as the main display screen activated, showing a star map with dozens of moving points of light. "This is Captain Nix of the Andromedan vessel Starwalker," came a voice through the speakers. The translation technology Kai had helped develop made the alien words sound like clear English. "We're responding to the call for alliance. Our ship carries refugees from 14 different worlds." Cheers erupted throughout the facility. Each new arrival brought not just more survivors, but additional knowledge and technology that strengthened their growing alliance. Kai stepped up to the communication console. "Welcome, Starwalker. This is Earth Defense Station Prime. We're transmitting coordinates for safe approach vectors." Tom watched the boy coordinate the arrival of an alien starship as casually as he might have ordered pizza just months ago. The transformation in all their lives had been incredible. "Tom," Agent Chen said, "we need to talk. There's something new." They walked to a quieter section of the base, where Agent Chen activated a secure briefing room. The walls displayed images from deep space telescopes showing a vast dark structure moving between stars. "It's closer than we thought," she said grimly. "The harvest has consumed 3 more star systems in the past month. At its current speed, it will reach the outer edge of our solar system in less than 2 years. Tom felt a chill despite the warm desert air. 2 years? Can we be ready in time? We have to be. Agent Chen replied. But there's something else. Our long-range sensors have detected something unexpected. The harvest isn't just one massive structure. It's actually millions of smaller units working together like a swarm. Dr. Rodriguez joined them, having overheard the conversation. "What does that mean for our defense strategy?" "It means we can't just build a wall around Earth and hope for the best," Agent Chen explained. "We need to be mobile, adaptive. We need to think like the alien survivors who've been fighting this thing for centuries." That evening, the core group gathered on the facility's rooftop terrace. Tom, Dr. Rodriguez, Agent Chen, Zara, and Kai sat around a simple table, sharing a meal and watching the sunset paint the desert sky in brilliant colors. "I've been thinking about my father's research," Kai said, picking at his food thoughtfully. He believed that the harvest wasn't just destroying civilizations, it was learning from them. Zara nodded. "Each world it consumes makes it smarter, more adaptable. That's why it's so difficult to fight, but that might also be its weakness." Dr. Rodriguez suggested, "If it's learning from the civilizations it destroys, then it's also inheriting their limitations." Agent Chen leaned forward. "What do you mean? Every species thinks differently." Dr. Rodriguez explained, "Humans are chaotic and unpredictable. Etherians are harmonious and intuitive. Other aliens we've met have completely different approaches to problem solving. The harvest might be getting confused by all these different ways of thinking." Kai's eyes lit up. "That's it. Papa's notes mention quantum interference patterns. If enough different types of consciousness are fighting together, it could create a kind of mental static that the harvest can't process." Tom looked around the table at this unlikely family he'd somehow become part of. "So our best weapon isn't technology or firepower. It's diversity." "Exactly," Zara said, smiling at him. "The harvest expects resistance to follow predictable patterns. But what happens when human creativity combines with Etherian life energy, and Zephyrian quantum manipulation, and Andromedan space-time folding? Chaos," Agent Chen said, grinning. "Beautiful, unpredictable chaos." Over the following months, their strategy evolved around this insight. Instead of building identical defense stations, each facility was designed differently, incorporating unique technologies and approaches from various alien cultures. Human engineers worked with Etherian bioarchitects, while Zephyrian energy masters learned from Andromedan mathematics. Kai remained at the center of it all, his hybrid nature allowing him to understand and coordinate between dozens of different alien thought processes. He was growing into his role as Earth's first interspecies diplomat, but he was still the same curious child who could make Rex fetch sticks and heal dying plants. 1 year later, Tom stood in the same observation window, but now he was looking out at something that took his breath away. The sky was filled with ships from dozens of worlds, all working together to prepare Earth's defenses. The desert around the base had been transformed into a vast garden where Etherian plants grew, alongside Earth vegetables, creating a living symbol of cooperation between species. "Final status report," Agent Chen announced over the facility's communication system. "All defense networks are online. Early warning systems are operational. Allied fleet coordination is active." Dr. Rodriguez joined Tom at the window. "Think we're ready?" Tom watched Kai teaching a group of human children how to communicate with Etherian crystals, while Zara helped elderly human engineers understand biotechnology concepts. "Look at them," he said. "A few months ago, we didn't even know aliens existed. Now we're all working together like we've been friends for years." "The harvest expected to find a divided world," Dr. Rodriguez said. "Instead, it's going to find the most united alliance in galactic history." As if summoned by their conversation, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Not emergency alarms, but the coordinated chime that meant long-range sensors had detected something approaching from deep space. "This is it," Agent Chen announced. "Long-range telescopes confirm harvest scouts entering the outer solar system. All stations, prepare for contact." Tom felt his heart racing, but he wasn't afraid. Looking around at the humans and aliens working together with determined faces, he felt something he'd never experienced before. He felt proud to be part of something bigger than himself. Kai appeared at his side, no longer the scared child from that desert road, but a confident young man who carried the hopes of multiple worlds. "Ready?" the boy asked. Tom looked out at the sky, where the first battles for Earth's future were about to begin. "Ready," he said. And for the first time since this all began, Tom truly believed they were going to win. The alliance between worlds was about to face its greatest test, but they would face it together. The quiet construction worker who had stopped to help strangers on a dark road had become part of the